Look down at your feet for a second. Soft, padded, a little pink, the kind of feet that beg for a pair of shoes on a gravel path. Now picture your ancient ancestors' feet, thick, leathery, cracked like old boot soles, feet that could run over sharp stone without flinching. For almost the entire history of our species, human beings walked the whole planet with nothing at all between their skin and the ground. Across burning sand, jagged rock, frozen ground and thorns, their bare feet were tougher than any shoe you have ever owned. And then, at some point, we covered them up. We wrapped our feet in bark, in grass, in leather, and we never really stopped. But when did that actually happen? When did the first human being decide to put something on their feet? The answer is one of archaeology's strangest little mysteries, because the very first shoes have almost completely vanished. Let us find them. Here is the first problem. Shoes are almost invisible in the ancient record. They are some of the hardest things in all of history to find. Think about what a stone tool is made of. Rock. It can sit in the ground for 1,000,000 years and barely change. Now think about what an early shoe was made of. Leather, bark, woven grass, soft, living materials that rot away in just a few years. Bury a bone and it can fossilize. Bury a sandal and, almost everywhere on Earth, the soil simply eats it. So when we dig up an ancient camp and find no shoes, that does not mean the people were barefoot. It means the shoes did not survive. A footwear-shaped hole sits in almost all of prehistory. And to fill it, archaeologists have to become detectives. The rare places where a shoe does survive are almost magical, and the oldest one ever found is truly astonishing. In 1938, an archaeologist named Luther Cressman was digging in a dry cave in central Oregon called Fort Rock. And there, in the dust, he found dozens of sandals, woven, plaited sandals made from the shredded bark of the sagebrush plant. They were beautifully made, twisted and looped by careful hands. But nobody yet knew just how unbelievably old they were. Then came a clue from a volcano. The sandals were buried beneath a layer of ash from a colossal eruption, the one that carved out Crater Lake. Later, radiocarbon dating pinned them down. The Fort Rock sandals are around 10,000 years old, the oldest directly dated shoes on the entire planet. 10,000 years. Older than the pyramids, older than writing, older than almost every city that has ever stood. And yet, as astonishing as that is, these sandals are nowhere near the beginning of the story. They are practically modern. A few thousand years later, we get our first surviving leather shoe, and it is a little masterpiece. In 2008, archaeologist Diana Zardarian was working in a cool cave in Armenia called Armenia. She lifted out a shoe made from a single piece of tanned leather, cut and folded to fit a right foot, and laced up with a leather cord. It was about 5,500 years old, and it had survived, unbelievably, because it was buried under layers of ancient sheep dung. It was even stuffed with grass, maybe to hold its shape, like the paper we stuff in new shoes today. Then there is the most famous ancient traveler of all, a frozen man found in the Alps who died over 5,000 years ago. His shoes were real cold weather boots, a hide outer, an inner net of woven grass, packed with soft, dry grass for warmth. Little insulated snow boots. But every one of these shoes is only a few thousand years old, and our species is hundreds of thousands of years old. So how could we ever know about shoes from before anything could possibly survive? The answer is wonderfully clever. You stop looking for shoes. Instead, you look at the feet themselves, because a barefoot life leaves a permanent mark on the bones of your toes. In 2005, an anthropologist named Eric Trinkhaus had a beautifully simple idea about this. When you walk barefoot your whole life, your little toes grip and push and brace against the ground with every single step. That constant work makes the small toe bones grow thick and strong and robust. Barefoot feet build powerful little toes. But put those feet inside a sturdy, supportive shoe, and suddenly the little toes barely have to work at all. And when a bone stops being used so hard, over generations it becomes thinner, more slender, more delicate. So Trinkhaus measured the little toe bones of ancient humans, going further and further back in time, and he found a turning point. The Neanderthals and the earliest modern humans had thick, robust little toes. The unmistakable feet of people who lived their whole lives barefoot. But then, tens of thousands of years ago, something changed. The little toe bones started getting slender, while the big weight-bearing bones stayed just as strong. The whole foot was still carrying the same body. So why would only the little toes go soft? There is really only one good answer: supportive shoes. Something was cradling those toes and taking their work away. And the bones quietly recorded it, generation after generation. If the idea that toe bones can reveal a lost invention just gave you a little thrill, tap subscribe. Curio digs up one of these every single day. Okay, back to it. Because here is what those slender toe bones are really telling us. This signal appears deep in the old Stone Age, long before any shoe could survive. And it means the real origin of shoes is not 10,000 years ago at all. On this evidence, humans may have been wearing footwear around 40,000 years ago. 40,000 years, 4 times older than the oldest shoe we have ever actually held in our hands. And the toe bones are not the only clue pointing to shoes deep in the Ice Age. There are others, scattered in ancient graves and camps. At a famous burial in Russia called Sunghir, people were laid to rest, covered in thousands of tiny carved beads. And crucially, rings of those beads were arranged right around the ankles and feet, exactly where the edge of a decorated boot would sit. It strongly hints that these people were buried, wearing beautiful, beaded footwear that long ago rotted away, leaving only its jewelry behind. At other Ice Age sites, we find the tools for weaving and plenty of fur-bearing animals. The know-how and materials to make warm footwear were clearly there. None of this is a shoe you can pick up, but together, the bones, the beads, and the weaving all point the very same way. Shoes are old, really old. So, mystery solved? Not quite, because good scientists always poke at their own best ideas. And this one has a soft spot. The whole story leans on those slender toe bones. But could something other than shoes have made them thinner? Maybe later humans simply walked less on brutal, rocky ground. Maybe their whole way of life changed the stress on their feet. Shoes are the best explanation we have. But the toe bones are a hint, not a photograph. They cannot tell us the exact day feet went soft. And the numbers are fuzzy. The signal could mean 40,000 years, or closer to 30. It was a slow drift, not a single dramatic moment. There was never a first shoe day, no ancient inventor shouting that they had cracked it. Just countless cold, sore feet slowly wrapped up over the ages. And because the shoes themselves are gone, we may never dig up that 40,000-year-old sandal to be completely sure. So here is where the science honestly stands. The oldest shoe we can actually hold is about 10,000 years old, woven from Oregon sagebrush. But the bones of our ancestors' feet whisper of something far older, of soft toes and warm-wrapped feet, perhaps 40,000 years ago. For hundreds of thousands of years before that, human feet were bare and thick and astonishingly tough. nothing like the feet you have today. Your soft, padded feet are actually a very recent luxury, a gift from an invention so ordinary we forget it was ever invented at all. The shoe may be the most overlooked tool in human history. It let us cross ice, climb mountains, and walk into every corner of the world. And it did it so quietly that its own beginning rotted away, leaving only a whisper in a handful of little toe bones. So next time you kick off your shoes at the end of the day, remember the barefoot ancestors who never got to. Stay curious.